The first year I did these tanks, I almost threw them out the window because they were so stinky and I had to stay and spend so much time working on them. And yet this year I just was like, okay, let's do it again. And the kids love them.
Oh my God, he's swimming, he's swimming.
And they're gonna be able to learn so much more about having those in here.
Children are constantly making sense of the world around them. The natural world doesn't really present itself in a form that's really easily testable, and so we construct models to understand different elements.
As teachers are learning what the particular skills that it takes to be a scientist are, modeling is coming forward as kind of one that can be particularly useful and particularly challenging for the adults to get our heads around.
Despite the ubiquity of modeling across all of the national standards, it remains challenging to implement in the classroom with fidelity.
And you're gonna have some time to work in your group to figure out how do you want to organize your data. For the last 2 years, I've been one of the public school teachers that have worked with researchers to help understand how middle school students can become their own agents to make their own models.
How do we use the skill modeling as a foundational way of understanding phenomena? To speak to the way I used modeling in the first schools that I was in, it was way more a tool for delivery of content, a solar system diagram, or basic ecosystem games.
In the 7th grade, modeling of ecosystems turns into one kind of project, and students draw a food web and who eats what, and then we call that done. I've been refining how to have students model changes to the ecosystem when invasive species come in. When we go down there, what we're gonna have a chance to do is put this trap in the water, completely covered in the water down at Reed State Park.
It started with just filling a bucket of the crabs the students had found on our first trip to the intertidal.
Because they're abundant everywhere in the intertidal zone, kids always have success finding the thing that we don't really want around, but we have a lot of fun getting.
Crab, 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 crab.
Microcosms, or physical models, are really useful tools for introducing students to the practice of modeling. They readily recognize that this is a representation of a bigger system.
At first, it was challenging to figure out, okay, what are the access points in it that students can really see and measure?
Well, the first year was a little rough. I wasn't really sure where we're going in this group that we kept meeting, and there were conversations about what is a model, you know? How do we communicate that? How do we get kids to do that? So I'm gonna need a couple crabs. Who's gonna go get some right now? Okay, go get them.
We started setting up more tanks and having students actually responsible for individual tanks.
This is our biggest crab.
Once they kind of believed me that they were making choices that were then going to be executed in the tanks, the conversations students were having as they tried to figure out, okay, which one of those tells us more about what a green crab might prefer to eat, those are really, really interesting, authentic questions about an investigation.
If you want students to be able to develop models, the people that have to actually be doing the work are the students. And I think we came together as a group to realize that the messy part of figuring out how to get kids to become modelers is what we were really trying to do.
Female. That's a male.
That's a male. We're all males. We have all males.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a male.
That's a
oh,
female.
no, that's a female right there. 'Cause
One of the things that makes green crabs really fun to have in your classroom is that they're these very reactive organisms, and they'll snap at each other and grab each other's claws. Students really get attached to trying to measure things about how aggressive they are and how mean they are.
Oh my gosh, look at them all.
Which is a really hard thing to measure.
How do we keep pushing kids to understand exactly what it is that they're doing?
A huge area of growth for me is actually being able to tell whether or not a student is accessing this model in a helpful way or not based on how they're talking about it.
What's mostly movable rock?
And the questions that I need to ask to help interrogate their thinking and support them.
Why do you think that is? That there are fewer dots in movable rock?
How do you know that? What makes you think that? It triggers a pretty big pause when they have to really think through, okay, what did I see that tells me that?
We have this long-term data set of crabs from 3 different locations, and they've been looked at every single fall since 2015. When we first started doing this project, there were almost no Asian shore crabs. Now we have evidence over the last 2 years that they're a big player in the ecosystem, so now kids can say real things about what's changing in our ecosystem.
I think for most things in school, but particularly modeling, it's only as powerful as the need for it. And so for students to have genuine real-world problems that genuinely require that type of model to draw conclusions for, it creates this authentic space for that type of thinking.
A lot of them that I found, they were all like stuck together like a female under the male.
Yeah.
I'm getting excited about what kids are doing because I don't know the answers yet. Then they know that we're all working towards understanding something that's in the natural world that the answers aren't known.
What are the great ideas? How do we solve these problems? It's something that so many teachers could find spots for within what they're already doing. Whatever they're trying to teach students, this skill set can apply for.